Hello, friends. We are interested in the geography of our views, so please like and write in the comments from which city are you watching us and were there loud stories of betrayal in your city. Share your stories with us. Maybe the next betrayal story will be from your city. And we start. The storage room smelled of dust and old wood. Alex was kneeling on the creaking floorboards, his toolbox open next to him like a mechanic's suitcase. The lock on the door had been sticking for weeks, a small thing that finally needed attention. His fingers, roughened from working in the garage, deftly wielded a screwdriver, picking out rusty screws. The house was quiet, only the refrigerator in the kitchen hummed, and the floorboards occasionally creaked under someone's footsteps. Alex wiped the sweat from his forehead with the sleeve of his plaid shirt. October was cold in their town, but in the cramped storage room, filled with jars of pickles and boxes of junk, the air became heavy. He was almost finished with the lock when he noticed that one of the shelves was slightly away from the wall. I pulled on it, and the shelf gave way, revealing a narrow niche. In the semi-darkness, one could see a suitcase, old leather, with worn corners. Alex frowned. For 7 years, he and Emily lived in this house, and he never saw this suitcase. Maybe from the previous owners. He pulled it out, set it on the floor, and clicked the locks. The lid fell back, and his breath caught in his throat. Money. Thick stacks of $100 bills held together with rubber bands. He froze, his eyes widened. His fingers slowly went through the packs 10, 20, 30. I figured in my mind. 200,000, maybe a little more. My heart was pounding, blood was pulsating in my temples. It's not just money. This is too much money. Emily, he shouted, his voice trembling, stuck in his throat. Emily, come here. Silence. Then light steps on the wooden floor. Emily appeared in the doorway, her silhouette outlined by the light from the kitchen. Loose sweater, jeans, dark hair in a messy bun. She crossed her arms and bowed her head slightly. What? She asked, her voice calm, almost bored. Alex pointed to the suitcase still on his lap. What is this? His tone was harsh. He couldn't restrain himself. $200,000, Emily, in our pantry. Do you know about this? She stepped closer and looked at the suitcase. The face did not tremble, neither surprise nor fear. Only her lips curved slightly in a weak smile, as if she was trying to seem carefree. Oh, that's... She paused, choosing her words. A gift from my uncle. He died. I forgot to tell you. Alex looked at her in disbelief. Her words sounded empty, like a memorized text. No emotions, no details. He knew Emily, he knew how she pulled her hair when she was lying, how her voice trembled when she was nervous. But now she was like a statue. Uncle, he asked, slowly getting up. Which uncle? You never talked about any uncle. She shrugged, looking at the suitcase instead of him. Uncle Richard, Mom's brother. He was unsociable, left me an inheritance. Inheritance? Alex almost laughed, but his throat was tight. 200,000 in cash, in a suitcase, behind a shelf. Emily, where are the documents? Will, anything? She finally looked at him. Her brown eyes, usually warm, were now cold, like autumn rain. Alex, calm down, she said, and a note of irritation flashed in her voice. I wanted to make a surprise. I thought we'd buy a cottage by the lake. You said to yourself that you want to leave the city. He stepped towards her, his shadow falling on her face. Don't lie to me, Emily. The voice became quieter, but firmer. You didn't forget to tell me about 200,000, and you didn't plan any cottage. What kind of money is this? She stepped back, resting her back against the doorframe. For a moment, something flashed in her eyes, fear, anger, but she immediately pulled herself together. You don't trust me? She asked quietly, but there was a challenge in her tone. After all these years, do you think I'm hiding something? Alex was silent. He wanted to say that he trusted that it was all a mistake, but the words did not come. In recent months, their marriage has been like this castle. It seems to be holding up, but it is creaking. Emily became distant. She stayed late at work, answered evasively, and disappeared at meetings. He noticed little things, a new perfume, dropped calls, her gaze that was no longer looking for him. He pushed away these thoughts, but now, looking at the suitcase, he felt something important was collapsing. "I want the truth," he said, mincing the words. "Now." Emily sighed and ran her hand through her hair. "I told you," her voice became sharper. "This is from my uncle. He died and left money. I didn't know how to tell you. I wanted it to be special." "Special?" Alex raised his voice. "You hide 200,000 in the closet, and that's especially. Emily, can you even hear yourself? Where are the papers? Why cash? Who is this uncle I've never heard of?" She was silent, her fingers fiddling with the hem of her sweater. Suddenly, the phone rang, a sharp, piercing sound breaking the silence. Emily shuddered, her hand moved to her pocket, but froze. "Answer," Alex said, his voice as cold as steel. "Let's see who's calling." "It doesn't matter," she answered quickly, but her fingers were still kneading the sweater. "Answer." The phone was ringing, the melody cut through the air. Emily pulled out her phone, looked at the screen, and swiped away the call. But Alex noticed the name. Michael. Blood rushed to my temples. Michael, her colleague, the one with whom she went to conferences, with whom she stayed late. "Michael," he asked, his voice breaking. "It's you and him." "What?" "Emily, what's going on?" She looked at him, and there was something new in her eyes. Not fear, not anger, emptiness. "You're making everything difficult," she said quietly. "It's just money, Alex. Don't make a tragedy out of this." She turned and walked out, leaving him in the closet with his suitcase and his head buzzing. Alex looked after her, feeling the ground disappear from under his feet. He didn't know what to do, catch up with her, demand answers, or stand here, among the dust and cans, trying to understand when their lives had cracked. But he knew one thing. This suitcase was not the end. This is just the beginning. And the truth that Emily is hiding is much darker than he was ready to know. Alex sat at the kitchen table, staring at his mug of cold coffee. The light from the lamp overhead cast harsh shadows on his face, emphasizing the dark circles under his eyes. The suitcase with the money was still sitting in the closet, like a time bomb ready to explode. 2 days have passed since the conversation with Emily, but her words are, "a gift from my uncle." "He died," sounded in his head like a broken record. They didn't discuss it again. She acted as if nothing had happened. She cooked dinner, watched TV series, even tried to joke. But Alex saw. Her smile was strained, and her gaze was slipping away. He twirled the spoon in his hands, tapping it on the edge of the mug. The silence of the house was oppressive, although the wind rustled outside the window, driving fallen leaves around the yard. Emily left for work, or so she said. In recent months, her work has become something blurry, like a shadow that cannot be caught. Late calls, urgent meetings, business trips, which she mentioned in passing. Alex had never been suspicious, but now every step she took seemed like a piece of a puzzle that he couldn't put together. He remembered how 6 months ago he found her using her laptop in the living room. She sat leaning over the screen, her face tense, her fingers running quickly over the keys. When he entered, she slammed the lid so sharply that he even flinched. "What's there?" he asked then, trying to pretend that it was a joke. "Work," she answered, too quickly. "Boring reports. I don't want to burden you." He nodded, swallowing a slight pang of disbelief. But now this moment emerged in my memory like a piece of a shipwreck. Why was she in such a hurry to hide the screen? What was in those reports? Alex pushed the mug away and stood up. His steps echoed loudly in the empty house. He walked into the living room, where her laptop lay on the coffee table, thin, silver, always closed. Emily never left it open, even at home. Previously, he did not attach any importance to this. Everyone has personal space. But now it seemed like another lock he couldn't open. He put his hand on the lid of the laptop, but stopped. This was wrong. Rummaging through her things is like admitting that their marriage is falling apart at the seams. But the suitcase is in the closet, her empty explanations, her name Michael on the phone screen. All this burned him from the inside like acid. He should know. Alex opened his laptop. The screen lit up, asking for a password. He tried their anniversary, it didn't work. The name of her childhood dog is also missing. He entered several combinations, feeling his palms sweat. Nothing. Emily changed her password. She used to share everything: passwords, plans, dreams. Now even her laptop was foreign. He slammed the lid, his heart pounding. Memories swirled in my head, small but sharp, like shards of glass. Late calls that she hung up on, whispering, "It's from work." Business trips that he learned about post factum. The new perfume is harsh, expensive, and not at all her style. And also this secrecy, which was not there before. Emily had always been open like a book, but now the pages of that book were glued together. Alex returned to the kitchen, but could not sit still. He went out into the yard, where the wind ruffled the bare branches of the maple tree. The garage, his refuge, smelled of oil and metal. He turned on the light and started taking apart an old toolbox, just to keep his hands busy. But the thoughts did not go away. He remembered how a month ago Emily returned from another business trip to Boston. She was tired, but not as tired as usual. Her eyes sparkled, and there was a slight blush on her cheeks, as if she had just laughed. He asked how it went, and she waved it off. "Oh, nothing special. Boring presentations." But that evening she hummed to herself, something she hadn't done for a long time. And also this Michael. Alex had seen him a couple of times at company parties, tall, with a smooth smile and the manner of a man who knew how to please. Emily had always referred to him as a good colleague, but now the word sounded different. Why did his name show up on her phone? Why did she hang up the call so quickly? Alex threw the wrench onto the workbench, the metal clanking. He felt like an idiot. Maybe he's pushing himself. Maybe Emily really received the inheritance, and he's just looking for a trick where there is none. But the suitcase stuffed with cash did not fit into any framework. Who keeps $200,000 behind a shelf in a closet? And why didn't she say a word? He returned to the house, his gaze falling on her coat hanging by the door. Almost without realizing what he was doing, he put his hand in his pocket. His fingers touched a crumpled piece of paper. He pulled it out: a receipt from a downtown coffee shop, dated the day before yesterday. Time, 21:47. Emily said she was at work late, but their office is 10 miles from that coffee shop. And one more detail stung my eyes: 2 lattes. She never ordered 2 coffees. Alex clenched the check in his fist, feeling anger mixed with fear. He didn't want to believe that Emily was cheating. I didn't want to think that she was lying. But the evidence was forming a mosaic, and he didn't like the picture. He had to talk to her, but how? Blame? Ask? What if she avoids answering again, like last time? In the evening, Emily returned home. Her steps were light, almost carefree. She threw her bag on the sofa and smiled at him, but the smile did not reach her eyes. "How is the day?" she asked, taking a bottle of water from the refrigerator. Alex looked at her, standing at the sink. The coffee shop receipt burned in the pocket of his jeans. "Fine," he answered, trying to keep his voice even. "And yours?" "Oh, as usual. Meetings, reports." She shrugged and turned away to pour water into a glass. "Was it in the center?" he asked, and his voice trembled, betraying tension. Emily froze, her hand holding the bottle stopping. For a second there was silence in the kitchen, so thick that you could cut it with a knife. "In the center?" she asked, turning around. Her eyebrows raised slightly, but her face remained calm. "No, I'm in the office all day." "And what?" Alex looked into her eyes, trying to find a crack in her mask. But she held on as always. "Nothing," he said finally, looking away. "I just asked." She nodded, finished her water, and went into the bedroom, leaving him in the kitchen. Alex clenched his fists, feeling the blood pulsating in his temples. A check, calls, business trips, money in the closet, all these were traces leading somewhere he did not want to be. But he knew, if he did not find the truth, it would find him itself. And then everything that he considered their marriage, their home, their life could collapse. The kitchen was in twilight, only the lamp above the table cast a yellow circle of light. Alex sat clutching a cold mug of coffee, which he never finished. The 2 days after the discovery of the suitcase in the closet seemed like years. Emily acted as if nothing had happened. She cooked breakfast, chatted about the weather, even tried to hug him last night. But her touch was alien, and her smile was strained like a mask. Her words about Uncle Richard and inheritance rang in Alex's head like a false note. He didn't believe her. I couldn't. He tapped his fingers on the table and glanced around the room. Her bag stood on the windowsill, carelessly thrown after work. Next to her lay her phone, black, shiny, always with a password. Alex never checked her phone. Even the thought of it felt like a betrayal. But now, with the suitcase with $200,000 hidden behind the shelf, and her explanations crumbling like sand, he felt that there was no choice. He stood up, heart pounding as if he was about to rob a bank. I took the phone and pressed the screen. Password. He tried her birthday not right. Their anniversary is past. Finally, I remembered how she once mentioned the PIN code for the old card, 0719. I entered it. The screen blinked and unlocked. Alex exhaled, but the relief was immediately replaced by a heaviness in his chest. He crossed the line. First, he opened the messages. Most were ordinary. Correspondence with colleagues, friend Liz, reminders about meetings. But then he came across a chat with a contact named Sarah. The name seemed vaguely familiar, but he couldn't remember who it was. The messages were strange, short, almost encrypted. 22 o'clock, as usual. Don't be late. Confirm that everything is in place. No problem. Wait for the signal. Last message sent yesterday. Don't call. He might be nearby. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. He? He scrolled up, but the messages were deleted, leaving only these snippets. Who is Sarah? And why does Emily write that she's afraid he'll find out? He opened another chat, signed John. Also an unfamiliar name. The messages were even more laconic. Is the package ready? Yes, that's the place. Be careful. Alex clenched the phone until his knuckles turned white. This is not correspondence with a friend or colleague. This is something different, something that made him feel cold inside. He opened the notes, hoping to find some explanation. Most were empty, but one, password protected, attracted attention. He tried the same PIN 0719. The note opened. Inside is a list. K. 50K on the 15th. M. Check if he's following. R. Remove traces urgently. And below, on a separate line, Uncle R. Keep the story. Alex froze. Uncle R. Is this her fictional Uncle Richard? He opened the browser on his phone and typed in the search. Richard, relative of Emily Walker. Nothing. No obituaries, no mentions. He tried other combinations, but the internet was silent. Such a person did not exist. Emily lied. But why? And what is this package? Who are KMR? He put her phone back, trying to leave everything as it was. My head was buzzing. My thoughts were confused. The suitcase, the messages, the notes, everything indicated that Emily was involved in something dark. But what? Debts? Blackmail? Or? He didn't even want to think about it, but the word treason flashed in his mind like a neon sign. Michael, her colleague, whose name flashed on the screen. Late calls. Business trips. Is it all connected? That evening, Emily returned home, her cheeks pink from the cold. She threw her bag on the couch and announced that she was going to yoga. Today, Alex asked, trying to sound casual. It's already late. Yes, evening class, she answered without looking at him. Helps you relax. She went into the bedroom to change clothes, and Alex looked after her, feeling something heavy boiling in his chest. Yoga. Another detail that didn't add up. Emily started taking these classes a couple of months ago, always in the evenings, always alone. He had never asked where exactly, but now it seemed important. When she came out, wearing black leggings and a rug under her arm, he nodded, faking a smile. Good luck, he said, and his voice sounded almost natural. As soon as the door closed behind her, Alex grabbed the car keys. He didn't know what he was doing, But he couldn't sit and wait any longer. He ran out into the street. The cold air hit his face. Her car, a silver hatchback, was already leaving the yard. He jumped into his pickup truck, started the engine, and followed, keeping his distance. Emily headed away from the gym where he thought her yoga class was taking place. Instead, she turned downtown, toward an old neighborhood with low brick buildings and dim streetlights. Alex tensed, his fingers clenching the steering wheel. She parked at an inconspicuous cafe with a sign, Moonlight. He stopped half a block away, turning off his headlights. Emily got out of the car, but she didn't have her yoga mat with her. She looked around, as if checking to see if anyone was nearby, and entered the cafe. Alex waited, his breathing uneven. A few minutes later, a man emerged from the shadows in front of the cafe. Tall, in a dark coat, with short blonde hair. He also went inside. Alex couldn't see his face, but something about the way he walked, confident, almost predatory, made his stomach clench. He got out of the car and, trying not to attract attention, walked closer to the cafe. Through the foggy window, he saw Emily. She was sitting at a table in the corner, opposite the man. Their faces were serious, almost tense. The man was saying something, and Emily was nodding, her fingers fiddling with the edge of the napkin. There was a small black bag on the table, which she pushed towards him. He took it without opening it and put it in the inside pocket of his coat. Alex felt the ground disappear from under his feet. This is not yoga. This is not a job. It was something he didn't understand, but it scared him terribly. He wanted to rush inside, grab her, and demand an explanation. But my legs didn't obey me. He just stood there, watching his wife exchange secrets with a stranger. When Emily left the cafe, her face was pale, her lips pursed. She quickly got into the car and drove away. The man followed, but went in the other direction, disappearing into the darkness. Alex walked back to the pickup, his hands shaking. He didn't know who the man was, what was in the bag, or what it had to do with the money in the closet. But he knew one thing: Emily was lying. And this lie is not just treason. This is something much worse. He started the car and drove home, but his thoughts were far away. Messages, notes, a suitcase, a cafe, all these were traces leading into the abyss. And the deeper he dug, the more clearly he understood. The truth would destroy everything that he considered his life. But he could no longer stop. A cold wind blew dry leaves across the asphalt as Alex sat in his pickup truck parked in the shade of an old oak tree. His eyes were glued to the Silver Pines Motel sign, neon letters blinking in the twilight, promising comfort and anonymity. This was not a cheap highway hangout, but an expensive complex with manicured lawns and glass doors, where businessmen and couples seeking privacy stayed. Alex gripped the steering wheel, feeling his palms sweat. Emily walked in an hour ago, carrying a black duffel bag over her shoulder. No yoga mat, no explanation. It all started in the morning when she again announced that she was going to yoga. Her voice was light, almost cheerful, but Alex noticed how she avoided his gaze while straightening her hair. After the Moonlight Cafe scene, he couldn't sit still. The messages on her phone, the encrypted notes, the imaginary Uncle Richard, it was all like poison, slowly poisoning his mind. He said he was going to the garage to fix his old car, but instead he went to get it again. Emily turned not towards the gym, but towards the highway, towards this motel. Alex kept his distance, heart pounding as he watched her park at the main entrance. She got out of the car, looked around. Her movements were fast, wary, and disappeared behind the glass doors, clutching her bag. Alex stopped across the street, in the shadows where his pickup truck was out of sight. He waited, trying to convince himself that it was a mistake. Maybe she's dating a friend, or is this some kind of work meeting? But deep down he knew, this is not yoga. This is not a job. The hours passed slowly, like tar. He turned on the radio to drown out his thoughts, but the voices of the presenters only irritated him. Turned it off. I checked my phone, no messages. Only the receipt from the coffee shop, which he still carried in his pocket, reminded him of her lies. 2 lattes, late evening, and now a motel. He felt anger and fear twisting into a tight knot in his chest. 2 hours later, The motel doors opened and Emily walked out. She didn't have a bag with her. Her hair was slightly disheveled, but her face was calm, almost serene. She got into the car and drove away without looking back. Alex watched her hatchback disappear around the bend and felt something inside it crack. He wanted to storm into the motel, demand answers, but what would he say? Where was my wife for 2 hours? It sounded pathetic. Still, he couldn't just leave. He got out of the pickup and walked up to the motel. The hall smelled of lavender and expensive detergent. A young woman in a formal uniform sat behind the counter, her smile professionally polite. "Good evening," she said. "How can I help?" Alex hesitated. He didn't know what he was looking for. Number? Name? Proof? "I forgot what room my friend was staying in," he squeezed out, feeling how ridiculous his words sounded. She just left. Dark hair, wearing a black jacket. The woman raised an eyebrow, but kept her smile. "Sorry, sir, we do not disclose information about guests. Maybe call your friend?" Alex nodded, muttered something incomprehensible, and left. He felt like an idiot, but at the same time like a hunted animal. Emily was here. 2 hours. No bag. This is not yoga. This is not a meeting with a friend. He didn't want to say this word, but it was already burning in his mind. Betrayal. In the evening, Emily returned home as if nothing had happened. She threw her keys on the table by the door, pulled off her jacket, and smiled at him, her cheeks slightly pink, like after a workout. "Phew, I'm exhausted," she said, stretching. Today they worked in the hall like in the army. Shower and sleep, probably. Alex stood at the sink, squeezing the sponge so that water dripped onto the floor. Her voice sounded so natural, so familiar, that for a second he almost believed it. But the image of the motel, her silhouette in the glass doors, the bag she couldn't take out, all this stood before my eyes, like frames from someone else's film. "Was the yoga good?" he asked, trying to keep his voice even. "Yeah," she answered, opening the refrigerator. "The new coach is a beast. Almost died on the plank." She laughed, but the laughter was empty, like an echo. Alex looked at her, feeling anger boiling inside. She was lying, right in his face. He wanted to grab her, shake out the truth. But instead, he simply nodded and muttered, "Cool." Emily went to the bathroom, and soon the sound of running water was heard. Alex remained in the kitchen, his fingers gripping the edge of the countertop. He didn't know what to do. Confrontation, ask directly, but what if she gets out of it again, like with Uncle Richard? He had already checked her phone, found messages, notes, and realized that there was no uncle. Now a motel. It was too much. Too real. He walked into the living room, where her bag was still lying on the sofa. He knew that he shouldn't, but his hands naturally reached for the lightning. There was nothing unusual inside: a wallet, keys, a couple of crumpled checks. But then his fingers hit something hard. He pulled out a small plastic container, like the ones they use for pills. Opened it. Inside is a SIM card. Not the one on her phone. Another. Alex looked at her, feeling the blood rushing in his ears. Why does she need a second SIM card? For whom? For what? He put the container back, trying to leave everything as it was, but his hands were shaking. It was another piece of the puzzle, and the picture was getting darker. When Emily came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, she looked relaxed. She walked up to him, touched his shoulder. Her fingers were warm, but Alex barely restrained himself from recoiling. "Are you okay?" she asked, tilting her head. "You look tense." "I'm just tired," he replied, looking away. "Long day." She nodded as if she believed it and went into the bedroom. Alex looked after her, feeling like something was dying in him. He loved her, or thought he did. But the woman who stood before him was not the Emily he married. Emily didn't hide money in the closet, didn't meet strangers in a cafe, didn't spend 2 hours in a motel, and left her bag somewhere.
He lay down in bed next to her, but could not sleep. Her breathing was even, calm, and his thoughts were racing like a hunted animal. Motel, SIM card, messages, money. It was all connected, but how? He had to find answers, even if they destroyed everything he had left. Tomorrow, he will start digging deeper. He'll check her calls, go to that cafe, maybe even go back to the motel. But he knew one thing for sure. The truth, whatever it was already breathing down his neck.
The silence in the house was thick, like fog over a lake. Alex sat in the living room, in the dark, with Emily's laptop on his lap. He hacked the password 2 hours ago after she left for another yoga. The method was simple, almost primitive. He found an old note with her password in a dresser drawer, DM0719 Walker. She was always careless with these things, and that worked to his advantage. But now, looking at the screen, he wished he had remained ignorant. He rummaged through her files, feeling like a thief in his own home. Most of the folders were work files, reports, presentations, letters to clients. But one, simply called personal, was protected by another password. He tried the same thing, it worked. Inside was a PDF document, a bank account statement. The account was in the name of Caitlin Morris, her friend who died in an accident 3 years ago. Alex frowned, his heart pounding. Why does Emily have a bill in her dead friend's name? He opened the file. Translations. Dozens of transfers, from $5,000 to $20,000, from different people. The names were unfamiliar. David R., Marcus T., Anna L. Some were labeled service transfer. Others were meeting gift. The amounts amounted to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Receipts have been going on for the last 2 years. The latest transfer, $15,000 from one Robert K., was dated last week. Next to it is a note. For the meeting as agreed. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. Gift for meeting. These words sounded dirty, like an accusation. He tried to find another explanation, maybe it was business, consultations. But Caitlin was dead, and Emily never mentioned any Robert. And why hide the account? He saved the statement to a flash drive, his fingers trembling. This was not just a suspicion. It was a fact, cold and sharp, like a knife. He closed his laptop and leaned back on the couch, trying to breathe evenly. The motel, the messages, the SIM card, the suitcase full of cash, it was all starting to piece together, but he still didn't want to see the full picture. He loved Emily. Or maybe he loved who she used to be. He clung to the hope that he was wrong, that there was an explanation that wouldn't crush him. But hope was bursting at the seams. In the morning, while Emily was in the shower, he decided to check her things. He didn't know what he was looking for, something that would prove her innocence, or, conversely, confirm the worst. In the bedroom, he opened her chest of drawers and a drawer with linen. His fingers froze when he came across a lace set black with thin straps, expensive, overtly sexy. These were not the underwear she wore at home, not what he had seen on her in 7 years of marriage. There was still a price tag on the tag, $250. When did she buy it? And for whom? Alex clenched the fabric in his fist, feeling the anger and pain fighting inside. He remembered her words, "I plowed in the hall." Her pink cheeks after the motel, the bag she didn't take out. This laundry was another mark, another nail in the coffin of their marriage. He carefully put it back, closed the drawer, and left the bedroom until the sound of the water in the bathroom died down. Emily returned to the living room, wrapped in a robe, her hair damp. She smiled as if everything was fine. "You got up early," she said, pouring coffee. "Did something happen?" Alex looked at her, trying to find in her face the woman he knew. But her eyes were empty, her smile was alien. "I just couldn't sleep," he answered, his voice hoarse. "And you? How was yoga yesterday?" "Oh, killer," she laughed, but the laughter was forced. "The coach decided that we were all ready for the marathon. I can barely walk." He nodded, clutching his mug until his knuckles turned white. Lie. Another lie. He saw her at the motel, saw her leaving without a bag, saw a bill with transfers for meetings. And now this underwear is hidden like a secret. He wanted to scream, ask who she was, what she had done with their lives. But he was silent because he was afraid of the answer. The day passed slowly. Emily went to work, and Alex stayed at home, turning over the evidence in his head. He connected the flash drive to his laptop and looked at the statement again. Names, amounts, dates. He typed several names into the search engine, but found nothing too general without specifics. Then he decided to check her email, since the laptop password gave access thereto. In the deleted items folder, he found a letter from a certain R2. The same Robert. Topic, next week. Emily, everything is as usual. Room 214, 20 o'clock. Don't forget the black, you know what I mean. The amount is the same. R. Alex reread the letter 3 times, each word hitting him like a bullet. Black. He remembered the lace lingerie in the drawer. He felt nauseous. He still hoped that it wasn't what he was thinking. Maybe this is a code. Maybe she is involved in something else, blackmail, fraud. But the gift for meeting, the motel, the linen, everything screamed about one thing. He slammed his laptop shut and walked into the garage, where he always found solace among the tools and the smell of oil. But even there, the thoughts did not let go. He had to do something. Talk to her, follow up further, or he remembered the SIM card he found in her bag. Maybe there are answers there. He returned to the house, took the container out of his bag, and inserted the SIM card into an old phone that was lying in a drawer. The screen came to life, showing dozens of messages, all from one number without a name. 214 tomorrow. Don't take the bag, leave it in the room. You know the rules, no trace. Alex dropped his phone on the table, his hands shaking. This was not just betrayal. It was a system. Cold, calculating, like a deal. He still clung to the tiny hope that he was wrong, that Emily was a victim and not a player. But the evidence was inexorable. The bill, the laundry, the messages, the motel, everything indicated that his wife was living a double life. In the evening, Emily returned, as always, with a smile and slight fatigue on her face. She threw her bag on the couch and started talking about her crazy day at the office. Alex looked at her, feeling the words get stuck in his throat. He wanted to ask about the bill, about the linen, about the motel. But instead, he simply nodded and muttered, "Dinner is on the table." She kissed him on the cheek, and her lips were cold. When she went to the bedroom, Alex remained in the kitchen, looking at her bag. He knew he couldn't pretend anymore. Tomorrow, he will find a way to find out more. Maybe he'll go to the motel, check room 214. Maybe he'll find this Robert guy. But one thing was clear. The truth, whatever it was, would no longer give him peace. And the hope that he was wrong melted every minute, like snow under the sun. The gloomy morning shrouded the city in gray clouds, and light rain pattered on the sidewalks. Alex was sitting in the corner of the Brew Haven coffee shop, an old place on the outskirts where he had once had coffee with Emily in their early years. The tables were shabby, and the smell of freshly brewed espresso mixed with the dampness from the wet umbrellas at the entrance. Sitting across from him was Liz, Emily's college friend, whom he hadn't seen in 5 years. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, and there was a wariness in her eyes, despite her smile. Alex found her through social media last night after the SIM card, bank account, and lacy lingerie finally undermined his faith in Emily. He wrote to Liz, lying that he wanted to surprise his wife and needed advice from an old friend. Liz agreed to meet, but her tone in the messages was reserved, almost cold. Now, looking at her, Alex felt that she knew more than she was saying. "Thank you for coming," he began, twirling a paper cup of latte in his hands. "Long time no see." "Yes," Liz nodded, taking a sip of tea. "Life got twisted. How are you and Emily? Everything is fine." Her question hung in the air like mine. Alex noticed how she pursed her lips slightly, as if she was afraid to hear the answer. He decided not to delay. "Not really," he said, lowering his voice. "Liz, I found something. Money, lots of money, and other things. She says this is an inheritance from some uncle, but I know that this is a lie. You were close to her. Maybe you know something?" Liz froze, her fingers clenching the handle of her mug. She looked away, looking out the window where the rain was drawing patterns on the glass. "Alex, I—" She paused, searching for words. "I don't want to meddle in your affairs." "Please," his voice became firmer. "I don't ask for gossip. I just want to understand what's going on." She She's not what she seems. Liz looked at him, and something flashed in her eyes: pity. Fear? She sighed and ran her hand over her forehead. Damn, I knew this would end badly, she muttered, almost in a whisper. Is she doing this again? Alex felt the blood rushing in his ears. What is this? He asked, leaning closer. Liz, speak directly. She pursed her lips, her gaze darting towards the exit, as if she wanted to escape. But then, as if having decided, she spoke. Her voice was low and tense. In college, Emily was not the same as she is now. She was ambitious, but she had money problems. My parents didn't help me, and there weren't enough scholarships. She started meeting people. For money, not just dates, you know. It was... Liz hesitated, searching for a word. Organized. She worked through some kind of intermediary. She said it was temporary until she got back on her feet. I begged her to stop, but she seemed to like it. Money, attention, power. Alex sat as if he had been hit. Liz's words fell like stones, shattering everything he knew about his wife. He remembered the motel, the bank account, the messages, the laundry. Gift for meeting. This was not new. This was her past. And it seems real. Is she doing this again? Liz looked at him, her eyes full of shock and disgust. She doesn't have enough money. Why is she selling herself? After everything you've done for her. Alex was silent, his throat tight. He wanted to say that it was a mistake, that Emily was not like that, but the evidence was inexorable. Suitcase, SIM card, transfers, motel. Everything was coming together. He clenched his fists under the table, his nails digging into his palms. Why didn't you tell me? He finally squeezed out. All these years. You knew and were silent. Liz looked away, her cheeks flushed. I thought she had changed. When you got married, she swore she was done. She said that she loved you, that she wanted a normal life. I believed it. But... She paused, her voice trembling. A couple of years ago, she called me. I asked you not to tell you. She said that she had problems, that she needed money, but that's not what I think. I didn't believe it, but I didn't want to ruin your marriage. Problems? Alex almost laughed, but the laughter stuck in his chest. What's the problem, Liz? Everything was fine with us. Home, work, savings. Why does she need this? Liz shook her head, her eyes shining with tears. I don't know, Alex. She was always different. It was never enough for her. Money, emotions, whatever. I tried to talk to her, but she closed herself off. And then she stopped answering calls. I thought she could handle it. But if you found the money... She fell silent, her voice falling to a whisper. This is not an inheritance. These are her old gains. Alex looked at her, feeling like the world was collapsing. Emily, the woman with whom he shared his bed, his dreams, his life, was a stranger. She didn't just lie. She lived a double life, and judging by Liz, this was not the first time. He remembered her smile, her light jokes, her yoga. Everything was a facade. Who else knows? He asked, his voice as cold as steel. Who is her? Intermediary. Who are these people? Liz shuddered, her fingers trembling. I don't know, I swear. It was some guy in college, but I never saw him. She didn't share details. And now, I don't know. Alex, I'm really sorry. I should have said earlier, but... She fell silent, looking at him with despair. I have to go. She jumped up, grabbed her bag, and almost ran out of the coffee shop, leaving unfinished tea on the table. Alex looked after her, feeling the rain outside the window beat in time with his pulse. Liz was not saying something. He saw it in her hasty departure, in her trembling hands. But she said enough. Emily's double life was nothing new. This was her essence. He remained in the coffee shop, looking at the empty glass. Images were spinning in my head. Emily in the motel, her messages, a bank account in the name of a dead friend, Lacey Lingerie. And now Liz's words, she's selling herself. He still clung to the tiny hope that it wasn't true, that there was another explanation. But hope faded like smoke. He knew he had to move on. Find this intermediary. Find out who Robert, Marcus, Anna are. Find out how deep Emily is in. When he got home, Emily was there in the kitchen, cutting vegetables for dinner. She turned around, smiled, her eyes were warm, as if nothing had changed. "Hi," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. "Where have you been?" I was already starting to worry. Alex looked at her, feeling anger and pain fighting inside. He wanted to scream, to throw everything he had learned in her face. But instead, he forced himself to smile, although the smile came out crooked. "Just stopped by for coffee," he said. His voice was even, but everything was boiling inside. "A little tired." She nodded, returning to the vegetables, and began to talk about some funny incident at work. Alex listened, but her words passed by. What he saw in front of him was not his wife, but a woman who had lied to him for years. A woman who sold herself while he fixed cars and dreamed of the future. And he knew. This conversation with Liz was just the beginning. The truth was waiting for him ahead, and it would be even worse. The rain drummed on the roof, drowning out the silence of the house. Alex sat in the office, in the dark, illuminated only by the bluish light from Emily's laptop. His fingers were still trembling from his conversation with Liz. Her words, "She's selling herself," sting like acid. He stayed up all night, turning over the evidence in his head. A suitcase with money, a bank account, a SIM card, a motel, underwear. But now, after Liz's revelations, he knew he had to dig deeper. The hope that he was wrong had almost died, but he still clung to it like a lifeline. He had already hacked into her laptop a couple of days ago, using an old password he found in her chest of drawers. Then he found an account statement in the name of his dead girlfriend. But today he decided to check everything. Every file, every folder. If Emily is hiding something, it should be here. He opened the conductor, his heart beating like a drum. There is nothing new in the documents folder, work files, old photos, nothing suspicious. But then he noticed a folder hidden in a subfolder with the innocent name Archive. The folder was called Clients. Password protected. Alex entered the same password M0719 Walker. It worked. He clicked on the folder and his breathing stopped. Inside were dozens of files, neatly organized by name: David R., Marcus T., Robert K., Anna L. The same names as on the bank statement. Each file contained photographs, text documents, and video files. He opened the first one, marked David R. A photo of a man about 50 in an expensive suit with gray hair at his temples appeared on the screen. Next to it is a document with his details: name, position, deputy mayor of a small town, phone number, address, meeting schedule. Below are the amounts: $10,000 December 24th, 03, $15,000 April 20th, 24, and a note: prefers confidentiality. Alex felt his blood run cold. He opened the next file, Marcus T., businessman, owner of a construction company. Photos from corporate events, phone numbers, even the address of his country house. Schedule: Silver Pines Motel, room 214, every Tuesday, 20 o'clock. Transfer amounts marked as per meeting. Alex remembered the motel where Emily entered with a bag and left without it. He felt nauseous. He clicked on the video file in the Marcus T. folder. The screen was filled with a grainy image captured by a hidden camera. Motel room, bed with dark covers, dim lights. Emily is wearing the same black lace lingerie that he found in the chest of drawers. She smiled, her movements were confident, almost predatory. The man, Marcus, was sitting on the edge of the bed, his face clearly visible. They spoke, but the sound was muffled, the words could not be heard. Then she came closer, and Alex slammed his laptop shut, his stomach clenching. He couldn't look any further. It was real. Too real. He leaned back in his chair, gasping for air. Emily didn't just cheat. She wasn't just selling herself, as Liz said. She was an elite money girl with a clientele of politicians and businessmen. But that was not all. He opened the laptop again, forcing himself to continue. In the Clients folder, there was another subfolder, Archive. There were old files there, dating back years to when they first got married. So Liz was right. Emily never quit. She lied to him from the very beginning. He opened another file, Robert K., politician, member of the county council. Photos from election posters, motel meeting schedules, transfer amounts. And one more video file. Alex didn't open it, but noticed a text note. Threats of exposure. Requires $50,000. Paid on May 10th, 25. His heart sank. Blackmail. Emily didn't just serve these people. She collected dirt on them. Videos, photos, correspondence, all this was her weapon. A suitcase with cash, transfers to the account of a dead friend, a second SIM card. It was not just a double life. It was a criminal scheme. Alex flipped through a few more files. Anna L. is the owner of a restaurant chain. David R. is not only the deputy mayor, but also a man with a criminal record for tax evasion. Each client was someone powerful, vulnerable, with secrets they didn't want to reveal. Emily knew this, and I used it. He closed the folder, his hands shaking so much that he could barely hit the keys. Horror came in waves. His wife, the woman with whom he shared his house, his bed, his life, was not just a girl of easy virtue. She was a blackmailer, a manipulator, a person who ruined lives for money. He remembered her smile, her light jokes, her yoga. Everything was a lie, all. He copied the client's folder onto the flash drive, trying not to think about what he was doing. This was proof, but what to do with it? Go to the police? Confront her? He still couldn't believe it was true. Somewhere in the depths of my soul, there was a tiny spark. Maybe it was drawn in against my will. Maybe she's being forced. But the files, the video, her confident movements on the recording, everything said otherwise. She knew what she was doing, and she did this for years. When Emily returned home, it was already after midnight. She entered quietly, threw her bag on the sofa, and turned on the light in the kitchen. Alex sat there in the dark, an empty mug in his hands. She flinched when she saw him. "God, Alex, you scared me," she said, pressing her hand to her chest. "Why aren't you sleeping?" He looked at her, her dark hair, her tired smile, her eyes that once seemed like home to him. Now he saw only lies in them. "It was a long time," he said, his voice low, almost lifeless. "Is yoga taking too long?" "Yeah," she shrugged, opening the refrigerator. "Then the girls and I went to the bar. We got beat up, you know how it goes." He nodded, clutching his mug. Bar. Another lie. He knew where she was. Motel, room 214, another client. Maybe Robert, maybe someone new. He wanted to stand up, throw the flash drive in her face, ask how she could. But he was silent because he was afraid of what he would hear. And because I knew, this is not the end. The client's folder was just the tip of the iceberg. "Go to sleep," he said finally, getting up. "The morning will be hard." She looked at him, her eyebrows raised slightly, but she just nodded. "Good night," she said, and her voice was soft, almost gentle. Alex went to the bedroom, but sleep did not come. He lay looking at the ceiling, feeling the flash drive in his jeans pocket burning his skin. Dossiers on her clients, videos, evidence, all this was in his hands. But what next? He still loved her, or maybe he loved Emily, who never existed. And he knew, if he started to figure it out, if he brought this truth to light, their lives and his own would fall into pieces. But he could no longer stop. The kitchen was flooded with cold moonlight pouring through the curtains. Alex sat at the table, clutching the flash drive with the client's folder in his fist. Its sharp edges dug into his palm, but he barely noticed the pain. Emily's laptop, the video, the bank account, Liz's words, all of this was intertwined into a tight knot that suffocated him. He could no longer remain silent. He couldn't pretend that their life was just a jammed lock that could be fixed. Today he will demand the truth, even if it tears him apart. Emily entered the house around 10 o'clock in the evening. Her steps were light, as always after yoga. She threw her bag on the sofa, turned on the light, and froze when she saw Alex at the table. His face was motionless, his eyes dark as a stormy sky. She narrowed her eyes a little, but smiled as if nothing had happened. "Why are you so gloomy?" she asked, taking off her jacket. "What happened?" Alex slowly unclenched his fist and put the flash drive on the table. Its metallic shine seemed alien in the cozy kitchen. "Sit down, Emily," he said, his voice low, almost menacing. "We need to talk." She raised an eyebrow, but sat down opposite him with her arms crossed. Her posture was relaxed, but Alex noticed how her fingers trembled slightly. "What kind of theater?" she asked. Her tone was light, but there was a hint of wariness in her eyes. "Are you okay?" He pushed the flash drive towards her, without looking away. "I found your folder. Clients. Photos, videos, schedules, politicians, businessmen. Translations for meetings. Blackmail. That's it, Emily. I know." Her face didn't change, but Alex noticed how her lips pursed slightly. She was silent, looking at the flash drive as if it were something insignificant, a crumpled-up check, and not a bomb ready to blow up their lives. Finally, she sighed and leaned back in her chair. "And what?" she asked, her voice flat, almost bored. "Are you a detective now?" Alex felt anger flare up in his chest, but he held it in. "Don't lie to me," he said, mincing the words. "I saw the video. Motel, room 214. Your laundry. You don't just sleep with them. You're blackmailing them. The suitcase in the closet, the bill in Caitlin's name, it's all your work. Who are you, Emily? Who is this woman I live with?" She looked at him, and her eyes were cold as ice. "Do you really want to know?" she asked, leaning closer. "Fine. This is an inheritance. From Uncle Richard. I told you so." Alex slammed his fist on the table, the mugs clinked. "Enough," he barked. "Uncle Richard is fiction. I checked. He's gone. There is no inheritance. There is only you, your clients, and your lies. Explain." Now, Emily didn't flinch. She leaned back, her lips curling into a faint, almost mocking smile. "Okay, Alex," she said, and her voice became harder than steel. "Do you want the truth? Yes, I'm working. Yes, it's sex for money. Top level, not some street trash. And yes, I charge them more than just money per night, because they pay for silence. And guess what? It works. You haven't noticed anything all these years, so you didn't need to know." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. Alex looked at her, not believing that this was his wife, the woman who made him coffee in the morning, laughed at his jokes, slept next to him. Now she was a stranger, her face a mask without a drop of remorse. "Why?" he squeezed out, his voice trembling. "We had everything. Home, work, me. I loved you. Why do you need this?" She laughed shortly, sharply, as if he had said something ridiculous. "Love?" she asked, her eyes flashing. "Love doesn't pay the bills, Alex. Doesn't buy cars, doesn't pay off loans. You fix cars in your garage. Do you think that makes us free? I wanted more. I always wanted more. And I took it. Money, control, power. These people politicians, businessmen, they are mine. I hold their lives in my hands. And I like it." Alex felt something inside him break. He looked at her cold confidence, and saw not a wife, but a predator. "You are a woman of easy virtue," he said quietly, almost in a whisper. "Cheap, despite your motels and lacy lingerie. I can't live with such a woman." Her smile disappeared, and her eyes narrowed. She stood up, her movements sharp but controlled. "Cheap?" she asked, her voice dripping with venom. "You live in this house, drive a car, eat food, all this was bought with my money, Alex. You enjoyed the fruits of my labor and did not complain. Are you a moralist now? Please, leave if you want, but don't think you're clean." He stood up, his fists clenching. "I didn't know," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "You lied to me from the very beginning. You used me, our marriage, as a cover for your scheme. You're not even human, Emily. You are a monster." She stepped towards him, her face inches from his. "Monster," she hissed. "I made us rich. I gave us the life you only dreamed of. And what did I get? Your suspicions, your surveillance, your pathetic attempts to play detective. If you can't live with it, get out. But don't you dare judge me." Alex looked into her eyes, searching for any hint of the Emily he loved. But she was not there. Before him stood a woman to whom money and control meant more than their marriage, their life. He felt tears burning his eyes, but held back. "I'll leave," he said, his voice icy. "But this is not the end. Do you think your clients will remain silent when I give this flash drive to the police? You destroyed us, Emily, and I won't let you leave without consequences." Her face trembled for a moment, a shadow of fear flashed in her eyes. But she quickly pulled herself together, her lips curling into a smile again. "Try," she said quietly. "But remember, these people you want to expose, they don't like to be touched. And I know how to protect them. And you're just a car mechanic, Alex. Don't play games you don't understand." She turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving him alone. Alex looked at the flash drive lying on the table and felt like the world was collapsing. He wanted to believe that she would repent, that she would ask for forgiveness, that she would explain everything so that he could understand. But she didn't do anything. She only confirmed that their marriage was a lie, and her life was a game where he was a pawn. He took the flash drive and put it in his pocket. Tomorrow he will decide what to do: the police, a lawyer, or maybe a direct conversation with one of her clients. But now he knew one thing: he could not stay in this house. Not with her. Not with this woman who looked at him like he was a nuisance. He packed his bag, threw his clothes and keys into it, and left without looking back. The door slammed behind him, and the sound echoed in the empty house, like the final chord of their ruined life. Tuesday morning began with the smell of burnt toast and a call that turned Alex's life upside down. He was standing in the kitchen, trying to scrape the black crust off his bread, when his phone vibrated on the table. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice on the other end belonged to his boss, Ted, the owner of the auto repair shop where Alex worked for 10 years. Ted's voice was as cold as the winter wind. "Alex, we need to talk. Come to the workshop. Now." "What's happened?" Alex asked, but a feeling of foreboding was already squeezing in his chest. "You'll see when you get there," Ted snapped and hung up. Emily was at work, or, as Alex now knew, at another meeting. He grabbed the keys, put on his jacket, and drove off. Ted was waiting for him in the workshop, standing at the entrance with a folder in his hands. His face was red, his eyes like those of a man who had just been betrayed. "What the hell is this, Alex?" Ted threw the folder on the hood of the old Ford. Photos and printouts poured out of it. Alex allegedly taking cash from some guy in an alley, screenshots of correspondence where he sold spare parts from the workshop, and even a fake check with his signature. Alex looked at the papers, feeling the ground disappear from under his feet. "It's fake, Ted," he said, his voice shaking. "I never. You know me. I know." Ted raised his voice. "I received this yesterday, anonymously. And guess what? It looks damn convincing. Clients are already calling and asking why we have theft. I can't take that risk, Alex. You're fired." "Ted, listen," Alex began, but the boss raised his hand. "Get out, and don't come back." Alex stood looking at the scattered photographs, his hands clenched into fists. This was not just a dismissal. It was an attack. Someone wanted to destroy him, and he knew who: Emily. Her words during their last quarrel, "Don't get involved in games you don't understand," rang in my head. She knew how to stay in control. And now that he was threatening her flash drive scheme, she struck first. He returned home, his life collapsing like a house of cards. Without work, without savings, everything they had, as she herself admitted, depended on her earnings. He sat down at the kitchen table, looking at his empty mug. The suitcase in the closet, the client's folder, her cold confession: all this was her world, where he was just a pawn. And now she took away the last thing from him: his job, his reputation. But he wasn't going to give up. Alex pulled out his phone and started looking for contacts. He remembered Marcus, an old friend from school who had bragged about becoming a private investigator in Boston a couple of years ago. Alex found his number in an old correspondence and dialed it. After 3 rings, Marcus answered, his voice hoarse but warm. "Alex, damn, how old? How are you?" "It's bad," Alex said, without wasting time on pleasantries. "I need your help. It's personal." Marcus paused, then cleared his throat. Tell me. Alex laid out everything. Suitcase, bank account, motel, client's folder, video, blackmail. He told Liz about her quarrel with Emily, about her confession, and about the incriminating evidence that cost him his job. I think it's her, he finished. She wants to shut me up so I don't go to the police. But I can't prove it. I need to know who her clients are, who her middleman is, how far this goes. Marcus whistled. This is not just treason, brother. This is organized crap. Dangerous. Are you sure you want to get into this? I have no choice, Alex said, his voice firm. She ruined my life. I won't let her get away with it. Okay, Marcus said after a pause. Send me everything you have. Flash drive, names, whatever. I'll start digging. But Alex, be careful. If she works with politicians and people like that, they don't like anyone prying into their business. And she seems to know how to play dirty. Alex nodded, although Marcus couldn't see him. Thank you. How much do you need? We'll figure it out later. Marcus waved him off. First, let's see what you've gotten yourself into. They agreed to meet in a couple of days to hand over the flash drive. Alex hung up the phone, feeling the adrenaline pulsing through his veins. He suspected Emily, but now it was more than suspicion. The incriminating evidence was too accurate, too destructive. She knew where to strike. His work was his anchor, his pride, and she took it away to keep him on a short leash. In the evening, Emily returned home, as usual, with a slight smile and the smell of expensive perfume. She threw her bag on the couch and started talking about her crazy day at the office. Alex looked at her, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. He saw her clearly now, not a wife, not a victim, but a calculating gambler who would destroy anything that threatened her control. Did you hear? He asked suddenly, interrupting her chatter. I was fired today. She froze, her eyes widened, but only for a moment. Oh, Alex, how? She said. Her voice was full of sympathy, but it sounded false, like a cheap show. What's happened? Someone set me up, he said, looking into her eyes. Planted false evidence on the boss. It was like I was stealing. Guess who could have done this? Her face didn't move, but he noticed how her fingers clenched the handle of her bag. Are you serious? She asked, her voice becoming quieter. You think Alex, this is crazy. I would never. That's enough, he snapped. I know what you did. Do you think this will keep me silent? You're wrong. Emily looked at him, her eyes narrowed. Be careful, Alex, she said quietly, almost in a whisper. You don't know who you're messing with. If you want war, you will get it, but don't complain later. She turned and went into the bedroom, leaving him in the kitchen. Alex looked after her, feeling anger mixed with determination. His life was falling apart, work, marriage, reputation, but he wasn't going to give up. Marcus will find the answers, and he will find a way to stop her, even if it cost him everything. The days after my dismissal dragged on like a rusty cable ready to snap. Alex lived in a motel on the outskirts, in a room with a musty smell and a creaky bed. The house he shared with Emily now seemed like a minefield, where every glance, every word was a trap. The flash drive with the client's folder lay in his jacket pocket, like a talisman, but also like a curse. He gave a copy of it to Marcus, his detective friend, 3 days ago, and since then he has been waiting for news, checking his phone every half hour. On Thursday morning, Marcus finally called. His voice was tense, without the usual bravado. Alex, I found someone, he said, lowering his voice. One of her clients. Large fish. Senator James R. Wilson. He's in your files as James R. Meetings with Emily twice a month, Silver Pines Motel, transfers of $20,000. I have correspondence and a couple of videos. It's him, for sure. Alex clutched the phone, his heart pounding. Senator Wilson was a well-known figure, respectable, married, with a family man image. If he's involved with Emily, it's not just a scandal, it's an explosion. What's next? Alex asked, trying to keep his voice even. Can we squeeze him? Marcus coughed, his tone becoming even darker. It's not that simple. I tried to reach him through an intermediary, But I was intercepted. His people. Last night. They offered to meet with you. They know you have files. And Alex, they're not kidding. Be careful. Where are you now? Alex asked, feeling the cold creeping under his skin. Safe, Marcus answered evasively. I'll call you back. Don't do anything stupid. But Marcus didn't call back. A day passed, then two. His phone was switched off, and no messages were received. Alex tried to call his office in Boston, but they answered that Marcus was out of town. It wasn't like him. Marcus was as reliable as an old engine, and his disappearance reeked of disaster. Alex began to suspect that Emily or her clients had gotten to him. On the third day, while sitting in a motel over cheap coffee, Alex received a message from an unknown number. Meeting. Today, 20 o'clock. Cafe Midnight Brew. Bring a flash drive. Don't be stupid. He reread the text. His fingers went cold. This is not Emily. Her style was subtler, more poisonous. It was someone from her world. Maybe Wilson himself. Or his people. Alex arrived at the cafe half an hour before the appointed time. Midnight Brew was a quiet place with dim lights and worn sofas. He sat down in the corner, ordered coffee, and waited, clutching the flash drive in his pocket. At 20:05, a man in a dark suit, about 60 years old, with gray hair and a heavy look entered the cafe. Alex recognized him immediately, Senator James Wilson. No security, no retinue, but with the aura of a man who is used to being listened to. Wilson sat down opposite him without wasting time on greetings. You're Alex Walker, he said, his voice low as the rumble of an engine. You have something I don't like. Let's keep it simple. Name the price. Alex looked at him, feeling anger boiling inside. This man, with his perfect manners and expensive watch, was one of those who ruined his life. Do you think I'm for sale? Alex asked, his voice shaking. How is your friend Emily? Wilson didn't blink. Don't be an idiot, he said coldly. You have files. I know what's there. If they surface, many will suffer. Not just me. You will receive money, enough to start a new life. $500,000. Cash. Right tomorrow. Alex clenched his fists under the table. 500,000. This was more than he had seen in his entire life. But the price was clear: silence, betrayal, flight. What if I refuse? He asked, looking into Wilson's eyes. The senator smiled, but the smile was icy. Then you will know what happens to those who interfere. Your friend Marcus already understands. Don't repeat his mistakes. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. Marcus, they got to him. Where is he? Alex squeezed out, his voice breaking. What did you do with him? He's alive, Wilson said with a shrug. Bye. It's all up to you. If you give the flash drive, he will return. If you remain stubborn, both you and he will disappear. It's not a threat, Walker. This is a fact. Wilson stood up and threw a business card with a number on the table. Call me when you decide. You have a day. He left, leaving Alex in the cafe, where the smell of coffee now seemed suffocating. Alex looked at the business card, his thoughts racing. Marcus is missing. Wilson knew about the flash drive. And most importantly, someone was watching him. He felt it this morning when he noticed a black sedan parked across the street from the motel. The same sedan flashed in the rearview mirror on the way here. They were close. Too close. Alex left the cafe. The cold air hit his face. He looked around, but didn't see the sedan. Maybe he was wrong, but instinct screamed, you are being watched. He suspected Emily. She was the one who set him up with the job. She knew how to play dirty. Wilson was her client, but she was the brains. Her words, you don't know who you're messing with, now sounded like a prophecy. He returned to the motel, locked the door, and checked the windows. The flash drive was still in my pocket, but now it felt hot as coal. He couldn't go to the police, Wilson, and his people clearly had connections. He couldn't trust anyone. Marcus was his last hope, and now he's gone. Alex sat on the bed, looking into the darkness. His life, work, marriage, home was in shambles. And it's all because of Emily. her schemes, her lies, her control. He took out his phone and dialed the number on his business card, but didn't press call. Wilson offered money, but Alex knew it was a trap. If he takes them, he will become part of their game. If he refuses, they will destroy him. But he had no intention of running. He will find Marcus. Will find a way to squeeze Emily and her clients, even if it's the last thing he does. Because now it was not just revenge. It was a war. The motel room, smelling of dampness and cheap detergent, became Alex's temporary shelter or cage. He had not slept for 2 days. His eyes were red from fatigue and the endless replay of events. The flash drive with the client's folder lay in his jacket pocket like a radioactive load, and the words of Senator Wilson, "You have 24 hours," rang in his head like a metronome. Marcus still did not appear. His phone was silent, and Alex felt the noose tightening. But he did not expect that the next blow would come so quickly and be so devastating. The morning began with a loud knock on the door. Alex, startled, grabbed his jacket, ready to run, but it was just a courier, a young guy in a blue uniform, who handed him a thick envelope. "Alex Walker?" he asked, looking at the tablet. "Sign it." Alex, frowning, signed and opened the envelope as soon as the guy left. There were documents inside, and his heart sank when he saw the title, "Dissolution of Marriage." Emily filed for divorce. But that was not all. Attached are accusations of domestic violence, supported by photographs. Emily with bruises on her wrists, abrasions on her neck, her tear-stained face. Testimony from a neighbor, Mrs. Clark, who claimed to have heard screams and banging from their house. A letter from her lawyer demanding that Alex leave their home and stay away from Emily. And as icing on the cake, a temporary restraining order restricting his access to their joint accounts. Alex collapsed onto the bed, papers scattered across the blanket. It was a lie. He never laid a hand on her. Even in their last quarrel, when she coldly admitted to blackmail and sex for money, he restrained himself, although anger choked him. But the photographs looked real, too real. The bruises, her look full of fear, everything was set up with frightening precision. He remembered her words, "You don't know who you're messing with." It was her move. She didn't just want a divorce. She wanted to destroy him. He grabbed the phone and dialed her number, but the call went straight to voicemail. So he called his lawyer, an old acquaintance named Gary, who had been helping him with contracts at the workshop. Gary listened, his voice grim. "This is serious, Alex," he said. "If she has evidence, even fake, the court may side with her. Domestic violence is a serious charge. You need to muster everything you have against her, and quickly, because the police may already be on their way." "Police?" Alex felt the blood drain from his face. "Yes," said Gary. "If she filed a complaint, they can issue a warrant. You better not come home until we sort this out. Come to my office tomorrow and bring those files you talked about." Alex hung up, his hands shaking. He looked out the hotel window, expecting to see flashing lights, but the street was empty. He packed up his things, a few clothes, a flash drive, an old wallet, and moved to another motel, 10 miles away, paying cash so as not to leave a trace. But the feeling that he was being watched did not go away. The black sedan he had spotted a couple of days ago appeared in his rearview mirror again as he pulled out of the parking lot. He wasn't paranoid. It was real. At the new motel, he double-locked the door and sat down at the rickety table, spreading out his documents. The photos of Emily with bruises were done professionally, the lighting, the angle, even her facial expression. This couldn't have been an accident. Someone was helping her. Maybe one of her clients, Senator Wilson, or her mysterious intermediary that Liz was talking about. He remembered the incriminating evidence that caused him to lose his job. Same handwriting, fake evidence, targeted strike. Emily played dirty, and she was a master at it. He took out a flash drive and connected it to an old laptop that he took from the garage before leaving home. The client's folder was still there, with names, videos, schedules. He opened the file with Senator Wilson and reread his correspondence with Emily. "Number 214 as usual. Don't be late." And her answer, "Everything is under control." She had him on the hook, just like the others. But now she was using that control against him, Alex. The divorce, the charges, the frozen accounts were all part of her plan to shut him up before he handed over the flash drive to the police or the press. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. He froze, his heart pounding. "Who's there?" he shouted, grabbing a metal hanger from the table, the only thing that could pass for a weapon. "Room service," answered a female voice, but it sounded too smooth, as if it were memorized. "I didn't order anything," Alex said, retreating to the window. Silence. Then steps moving away along the gravel. He looked through the gap in the curtains. A woman in a dark jacket was getting into that same black sedan. She wasn't part of the motel staff. It was surveillance. He was sure that Emily or her people knew where he was, and they weren't going to stop. The next day, Alex met with Gary in his office, a cramped room littered with files and smelling of coffee. Gary, a balding man in a rumpled suit, looked at the divorce papers and shook his head. "This is not just a scam, Alex," he said, taking off his glasses. "She's building a case against you." Bruises, statements from a neighbor, even recordings of calls to the police, everything looks like you are the aggressor. If you don't prove that this is a setup, the court will give her the house, the money, everything. And you can sit down. "It's her," Alex said, his voice hoarse with anger. "She set up incriminating evidence against my work. Now this. She wants me to disappear." Gary nodded, flipping through the files on the flash drive that Alex handed him. "This data, if it's real, it's dynamite. Senator, businessman, blackmail, but we need more. The court will not accept a video without context. And if you're right that you're being followed, you need to be more careful. Hire someone. A detective, for example." "I hired," Alex said, his face darkening, "Marcus. But he disappeared after contacting Wilson." Gary frowned, his fingers hovering over the folder. "Then you have bigger problems than divorce. If the senator is on the case, it's not just your wife. This is a network, and they don't like to be touched." Alex returned to the motel, feeling the walls closing in. The police were pressing in. He noticed a patrol car circling nearby as he was driving back. His accounts were frozen, the house belonged to Emily, and his name was now associated with violence. He was backed into a corner, and everything pointed to her. Her cold smile, her words, "You will get war," now made sense. She wasn't just defending herself. She destroyed him to preserve her peace. Days on the run have turned Alex into a shadow of his former self. His dark circle's eyes looked at the world with weary determination. Motel after hotel, cheap eateries, the constant feeling that he was being watched, all this became his reality. The police were looking for him on false accusations of violence. His accounts were frozen, Marcus disappeared, and the flash drive with the client's folder burned his pocket like hot coal. But he wasn't going to give up. Emily had ruined his life, and now he was ready to ruin it. Rachel Kane, the new detective he hired, was tough as steel. She dug into Emily's affairs, but her first reports were grim. Her network of client senators, businessmen, even a judge was too powerful. The direct route to the police was closed. They will crush him before the case comes to court. Rachel suggested another option, the press. "Find a journalist who isn't afraid of blood," she said, sipping coffee at the diner where they met. "Give him the files. If this goes off, her clients will run like rats. But Alex, this is dangerous. They won't forgive." Alex knew it was a risk, but he had nothing left, no home, no work, no illusions. He contacted Laura Hayes, a journalist from the Boston Herald known for her expose articles. She agreed to meet in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, away from prying eyes. Laura, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a cigarette in her hand, looked through the files on his flash drive in 10 minutes. "It's a nuclear bomb, Walker," she said, her voice hoarse with nicotine. "Senator Wilson, Judge Clark, half a dozen magnates. Videos, correspondence, translations. If this is true, I will blow them to pieces. But do you understand that after this, they will come for you?" "I'm already at the bottom," Alex answered, his voice firm. "Do your job." Laura nodded, took the flash drive and disappeared into the night. 2 days later, on Wednesday, the scandal exploded. The Boston Herald headlines screamed, "Elite sex agency and blackmail, the dark side of power." The names of the clients were not mentioned directly, but the hints were transparent. High-ranking senator, influential judge. The videos, blurry but recognizable, were leaked online. Social networks were buzzing. X was full of posts with the hashtag #BostonScandal. Wilson issued a statement denying everything, but his face was as gray as ash at the press conference. Emily, whose name has not yet surfaced, found herself at the center of a hurricane she had no control over. Alex, sitting in another motel, watched the news on an old TV. For the first time in months, he felt something like relief. Emily lost control. Rachel reported that her car was missing from their home, her phone was disconnected, and the office where she supposedly worked turned out to be a sham. She ran away. But Alex knew her too well. She won't give up. She will hide, wait, and make a new plan. And he was going to find her first. Rachel gave him a lead, an abandoned house on the coast, an hour's drive from the city. Emily bought it 2 years ago through a front man, probably with blackmail money. This was her refuge, a place she never mentioned. Alex rented an old Honda to hide his truck and drove there on Friday night. The road wound along the ocean, the waves crashed against the rocks, and the wind howled as a warning. The house stood on the edge of a cliff, surrounded by bare trees. The windows were dark, but in one there was a faint light flickering. Her hatchback, camouflaged by branches, was hiding behind the barn. Alex parked 100 meters away, turned off the headlights, and began walking, his boots crunching on the gravel. There was a knife in his pocket, not a weapon, but a tool, but it gave at least some confidence. He didn't know what to expect. Emily was cornered, and cornered predators are dangerous. He crept to the back door, which was unlocked. The inside smelled of dampness and old furniture. The living room was empty, dust covered the floor, but there was an open bottle of wine and one glass on the table. He heard footsteps upstairs and, holding his breath, climbed up the creaking stairs. Emily sat in the bedroom, lit by a dim lamp. She was wearing a black sweater, her hair was down, her face was pale but calm. On the table in front of her lay a pistol, small, shiny, like a snake. She didn't flinch when she saw him, she just narrowed her eyes a little. "You've always been stubborn," she said, her voice low, almost tired. "I knew you would come." Alex stopped in the doorway, his gaze darting to the gun. "This is the end, Emily," he said, trying to keep his voice level. "Your clients are drowning. Scandal is everywhere. You lost." She laughed shortly, bitterly. "Lost?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. "Do you think this is all because of you? You were a pawn, Alex. A small figure. I've been building this for years. Money, connections, power. Do you really think that some article in the newspaper will stop me?" He stepped closer, his fists clenching. "Then why are you here?" he asked. "You hide like a rat. Your senator is already lying on camera. Your judge is silent. They abandoned you. You are alone." Her face trembled, but she quickly pulled herself together. She took the glass and sipped the wine, not taking her eyes off him. "You don't understand," she said, her voice growing colder. "This is not about them. This is about me. I created this world. Every client, every transfer, every blackmail, it was my calculation. Cold, precise. You were part of the plan, Alex. The husband is a mechanic, a simple guy, an ideal cover. But you started digging, and he ruined everything." Alex felt his anger boil, but held it in. "You lied to me from the very beginning," he said, his voice shaking. "Our marriage, our home, everything was a lie. You used me to hide your dirty money, and when I found out, you set me up work, divorce, police. You're a monster, Emily." She put the glass down, her fingers sliding towards the gun, but not touching it. "Monster?" she asked, her lips curling into a smile. "I survived, Alex. In a world where people like you work for pennies, I took everything, and I don't regret it. You could live in this world without asking questions, but you wanted the truth, and here she is." He looked at her, looking for even a drop of the Emily he loved. but she was not there. In front of him sat a woman who, with cold calculation, built an empire on lies and blackmail. The gun on the table was not just a threat, it was a symbol of her power. But now she was panicking. He saw it in her eyes, in the way she clutched her glass, in the way her voice trembled despite her bravado. "What will you do?" he asked, nodding towards the gun. "Will you kill me? How's Marcus?" Her eyes widened, but only for a moment. "Marcus is alive," she said quickly. "He made a choice, just like you can. Go away, Alex. Forget about me. You have a chance to start again." "No," he said, his voice hard as stone. "You won't get away from this. The scandal has just begun. Your clients are already running. The police will find you, or the press, or someone you blackmailed. It's your choice, Emily. Run or give up. But I will not remain silent." She looked at him, her face motionless, but he saw her fingers trembling. For the first time, she looked not like a predator, but like a hunted animal. The gun lay between them, like a point in their history. She could have grabbed him, she could have shot him, she could have ended it all here and now. But she didn't move. Alex took a step back, his gaze never leaving her. "I loved you," he said quietly, "or who you pretended to be. But now I see who you are, and I won't be part of your game." He turned and walked towards the door, expecting the sound of a shot, the rustle of her steps, anything. But it was quiet. Only the wind howled outside the window and the waves crashed against the rocks. He went down the stairs, left the house, and got into the car. The cheap apartment on the outskirts of Boston smelled of dampness and the paint that had been used on the walls 10 years ago. Alex sat on the sagging sofa, staring at the old TV, where the news was an endless stream. Images flashed on the screen, the ocean shore, police tape, flashing lights. The presenter's voice was even almost bored. "This morning, the body of an unidentified woman was found on the coast. The cause of death was drowning. The police have not yet commented, but according to unconfirmed reports, this may be related to the recent scandal surrounding the elite agency." Alex turned off the TV. Silence hung in the room, broken only by the distant hum of cars outside the window. He didn't know if it was Emily. Nobody knew. She disappeared after their last conversation in the house on the coast, disappeared like smoke. Her car was found empty near a cliff. Her house was found abandoned, and her gun was missing. No note, no trace. Only rumors and speculation that were now circling the news like vultures. The scandal started by Laura Hayes's article grew like wildfire. Senator Wilson resigned, and his face no longer appeared on television. Judge Clark was under investigation for corruption. Several businessmen quietly sold their assets and disappeared from the city. But Emily, the brains of the network, never surfaced, either in the headlines or to the police. She was a ghost, and Alex didn't know if she was alive, hiding somewhere, making a new plan, or lying at the bottom of the ocean, as the news hinted. He turned his gaze to the suitcase standing against the wall, the same one with $200,000 that he found in the closet. Alex took him out of the house before leaving for good. It was her money, dirty, saturated with lies and blackmail, but he could not leave it. Not because he wanted to spend it, he didn't even touch the packs. It was a trophy, a reminder of what he had been through, and about who she was. He stood up, walked over to the suitcase, and clicked the locks. The packs became smaller. He gave some to Rachel Kane to cover her services, and some more to Gary, his lawyer, who helped fight off accusations of abuse. The court cleared him of suspicion, but the house and accounts remained with Emily, or rather, with her lawyers, who were now dealing with her inheritance. Alex didn't fight for them. He didn't care. He wanted only one thing to start again. He sorted through the packs, his fingers hitting something hard at the bottom of the suitcase. He pulled out an old photograph wrapped in a plastic bag. It was of him and Emily 6 years ago on Lake Michigan. She laughed, her hair fluttering in the wind, and he hugged her, his eyes shining with happiness. They were young, in love, full of plans. Once upon a time. Now it seemed like a dream, someone else's life. Alex looked at the photo, feeling something heavy moving in his chest. He didn't cry, the tears had stopped months ago, when he realized that the Emily he loved had never existed. But the pain remained like a scar that aches before the rain. He didn't know if she had drowned, escaped, or was still out there somewhere in the shadows, plotting a new scheme. And strangely, he didn't care anymore. She was his past, and he wanted a future even in this wretched apartment, with an empty account and no job. He put the photo back, closed the suitcase, and pushed it into the corner. The news could say whatever they wanted, but the truth died in that beach house where he left her with a gun and a choice. Exposure or flight. She had chosen, and that choice was now her burden, not his. Alex got up, put on his jacket, and went outside. The cold November wind hit his face, but he took a deep breath, as if for the first time in months. Tomorrow he will start looking for work, maybe in another city, away from Boston, away from its ghosts. He didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time it wasn't scary. His life was in ruins, but ruins are a place to rebuild. Somewhere out there, in the darkness, the waves crashed against the rocks, taking secrets with them. And maybe hers, or maybe not. It didn't matter anymore. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.